For the love of the gods, Liam, stop scaring us like that. Liam eyed the rooftops as Marim used the butt of his spear to poke the unconscious man on the pavement. Upon assuming his duties, a number of snoops conveniently presented themselves to be caught and delivered to House Rastello's men patrolling the streets below. I'm just following Sir Jimenez's instructions. Liam dropped down from the eaves into the alley next to them. He said you'd handle the prosecution part. What are you charging this guy with, anyway? What was he doing? Marim asked. I don't know what he was supposed to be doing, Liam said, but I caught him watching a woman taking a bath near her window. Hobans was suffering through a particularly hot summer, so most people left their windows open in a desperate bid to stay cool. Little did they know that the rooftops served as a highway for people like Liam. I can't exactly blame him for stopping to watch, but I guess it's his fault for getting caught. It'd be trespassing, at least. How many is that now, 7? 9, Liam said. Damn. Don't people know better than to break the law? It's not much of a law if you can't enforce it. Of course, most of the people in the Holy Kingdom didn't think that way. Notions of right and wrong regulated their behavior far more than the threat of punishment. Most of the people running around on the rooftops thought there was no harm in doing so and were looking for some amusement. Those that were actually acting as spies or conducting illicit activities were likely few and far between. For Liam, this was unfortunate. He wanted to know what the neighboring houses were up to as quickly as possible so he could get to work on his new orders. I'm going back up, Liam said. There's another guy nearby that I want to nab before he disappears somewhere. Want us to wait down here for you? He's on top of the apartment block east of this one. I'll drop him into the next alley. Marim nodded to the rest of his patrol. Liam frowned as two of the men carried the downed snoop between them to the next spot. Everything that they did was loud in one way or another. He scrambled back up to the rooftops. Hopefully, the next guy wouldn't be deterred by the scene. Fortunately, he was just as oblivious as the patrol below and Liam gave him a whack even as his victim watched Liam's previous victim being carried up the street. This is like unleashing a cat into a room full of mice. It would probably take a few days before all of the people going up on the rooftops for recreational purposes to get the hint and stop. After that, he would be free to deal with the rest. On his way to deliver his newest catch, he came across another man clambering onto the roof. They stared at one another for a moment before Liam got him, too. Marim and his patrol started as both of them fell into a pile of trash nearby. What the hell, Liam? Marim looked up at him. Is all of Hobans up there? I think people have just gotten used to playing around on the rooftops, Liam replied. Maybe you're right. Marim leaned forward to examine the new deliveries. Almost everyone you've caught can't be older than 20. It's a good thing no one got hurt. He was starting to feel bad about knocking them out. In hindsight, telling them to turn themselves in would have probably worked. This is a great haul for us, though, another armsman said. They're not fish, Liam frowned down from the rooftop. They're kinda like fish, the man replied. The palace hands out rewards for, what did they call it? Enforcement efficiency, Marim said. Yeah, that. Liam never imagined that the example he had used to explain things to Remedios was actually a thing. What do we get for that? Liam asked. I think the knights have their sights set on controlling more city blocks, Marim answered. We can catch more people that way and hobble the competition at the same time. Is there anything that would set us back on that score? His Divine Grace wants the city orderly and peaceful, so anything opposite of that would hurt us. If Riastais tried to implement the same rewards system, half of the country would be on fire. From what he knew of the Baharuth Empire, it wouldn't fare that much better. Has anyone tried, attacking another house's jurisdiction? Liam asked. Why would they do that? Never mind. He was never going to grow at this rate. The Holy Kingdom was pitifully uncompetitive when it came to things that might challenge him as an assassin. The influx of thrill-seekers petered out as midnight drew close. Liam yawned as he continued to maintain his uneventful vigil over the avenue. There were probably more people to catch in the other parts of House Rastello's jurisdiction, but he wasn't certain whether he would be praised for taking initiative or reprimanded for not sticking to his orders. I can probably use this opening. Liam dropped into an alley on the eastern side of House Rastello's jurisdiction and walked out onto the street. 2 steps later, he was nearly skewered. Whoa, Liam shouted as he danced back from his attacker. The flickering light of a torch closed from halfway up the block. Liam pointed to his neck. The man's eyes followed his gesture to the pin on his collar and lowered his spear. "Sorry about that," one of the men jogging up to join them said. "Lucas heard we took on a thief-taker and his heads filled Hobans with hundreds of rogues." That probably wasn't incorrect, but they were hardly what everyone feared them to be. Liam fixed his shirt and waved Lucas' apologetic expression away. "The next time you stop by the gatehouse," he said, "can you ask Sir Jimena if he wants me to clean up the rest of our jurisdiction?" "The rest?" "Yeah. He ordered me to stick to this avenue. I wanted to ask about the other places, but I can't leave my post." Lucas sent a fearful look at the rooftops. The rest of the patrol exchanged worried glances. "So you're saying that there are rogues here?" "Don't tell me you're scared of those guys." Liam rolled his eyes. "Every man in the company is stronger than one of them in a straight fight." "Yeah, but rogues fight dirty. What if they're sneaking around using poisoned daggers? It isn't as if they're going to pop up and stab you for no reason. The ones I've caught so far have been booked for trespassing, not attempted murder." The patrol visibly relaxed at his words. Liam idly wondered how they would react if he told them that there was an assassin in the city. "Have there been any thefts?" one of the armsmen asked. "You'd have to ask Sir Jimena about that. They'd be going through everyone's belongings at the gatehouse. I'm not going into people's homes to check if someone's stealing stuff." "That makes sense. We'll ask Sir Jimena about the rest of the jurisdiction once our patrol gets to the gate." "Thanks." Liam waited until the patrol reached the next block before sneaking across the street. From there, he made his way to the water gardens and entered the prime estates through the poorly guarded water gate. How should I approach this? Due to his work with House Rastello's caravans, he hadn't seen Remedios for a while and he had no idea how she would react to his reappearance. She was a pretty caring person, however, so he figured that she would be more relieved than angry. The Custodio Manor was completely dark, so entered through one of the solar windows. Unfortunately, Remedios wasn't doing any late-night reading. The familiar scent of her olive soap tickled his nose as he walked by her uniform to check if she was still awake. Nope. A column of moonlight from one of the windows fell over Remedios' bed, bathing her bare thigh in silvery light. Soft, steady breathing mingled with the whisper of the wind. Liam raised his hand to knock on the doorframe, then decided against it out of the fear he would wake others in the house up. He swallowed at the sight of the beautiful woman lying abed, doing his best to focus on his task. Remedios glomped him. He didn't know any other way to describe it. One moment, he was standing by her bed. Then, he was in bed with her. Did she use a martial art in her sleep? Or was this how fast those in the realm of heroes truly were? "Those pervy nobles came to confess to you again?" Remedios murmured as she crushed him to her breast. "Don't worry, Big Sis will protect you." He couldn't move. He couldn't breathe. Liam had no idea how Kellett had survived growing up with her sister. He wasn't sure how he would survive, either. She was so strong that her arms didn't budge in the slightest when he tried to break free. He thought about poking her, but he wasn't sure where. Furthermore, another issue was starting to rise. In desperation, he kicked Remedios in the foot. Her eyes fluttered open. "Huh? Liam? What are you doing here?" Liam was squeezed again as Remedios snuggled him. "Why?" It was already stupidly hot. Was she still half asleep? Remedios released him just before he passed out. Liam rolled onto his back, wondering how many of his bones were broken. The mattress shifted as Remedios propped herself up, rubbing a sleepy eye with her free hand. Liam turned his back to her as her shirt fell open. "What's wrong?" Remedios asked. "Are you hurt?" "I'm fine." He figured that she would kill him if he got hurt, so it was best to answer before that happened. Alarm rose within him as he felt a light touch on his arm. Can you put on some clothes?" Liam curled up. "More clothes?" "Eh? But it's damn hot." "Oh, speaking of which, your stuff came in." Her scant nightwear was common in the sweltering heat of the capital, but it made for a deadly combination with her supernatural beauty. Liam swung his legs off of Remedios' bed, making a show of tightening his bootlaces as he glared at his crotch. "Begone, sinner." When he complained about how often women appeared to torment him, Say just looked at him as if he was a patch of mold growing in the corner of a room. "Tyra, who was one of his tormentors, only laughed and told him to consider it resistance training. He suspected that they would just throw more women at him if he ever advanced in that training, so he did his best to avoid them altogether. "So," Remedios' voice came from behind his shoulder, "what did you find out? You're not mad that I disappeared for so long? I wondered where you went, but I figured you were off doing what you said you'd be doing. Carla's still worried about you, though." "Sorry, wait, you weren't worried about me?" Remedios snorted. "No. You pushed my hand away the other day. I wasn't trying to keep it there, but not many people can do that." She had assessed his strength from that simple interaction. Despite being obstinately, or more like proudly, dull when it came to most things, Remedios could only be considered as a genius when it came to fighting and related physical activities. After he finally settled down, Liam rose to his feet. He turned to find Remedios hugging her knees on her bed, resting her head against them. Strands of her hair fell over her cheek as she sucked in his gaze with her clear, brown eyes. "You're doing this on purpose, aren't you?" "Probably not." She was either oblivious or dismissed her own charm in her characteristically bull-headed way. Liam retreated to sit behind a small table a few meters away from the bed. He focused his senses out of the nearby window, alert for any third parties in the vicinity. "I secured a position in one of the labor camps outside the city." He held up the brass pin from House Rastello. "I didn't expect to advance so quickly, but I'm part of a company policing the area around Remune Gate now." "It's hard to believe that House Rastello could be up to no good," Remedios asked. "They're not doing anything explicitly illegal," Liam answered. "I'm pretty sure every house managing a labor camp around the capital is playing by the rules. The way that they compete is by applying pressure through competition, but I think it's getting to the point that their current methods won't achieve their desired ends anymore. So they'll resort to crime, which is something the Holy Order can do something about." "I don't know," Liam replied. "While I was working with House Rastello, no, even before then, I kept wondering why what I saw in the east didn't match up with what's going on in the capital." "What do you mean by that?" Liam drummed his fingers on the tabletop, trying to come up with a way to describe what was going on without sending Remedios flying out of the window in her nightwear to mete out justice. "Currently," he said, "the southern nobles are overseeing nearly everything in the north. That means they control all of the information that reaches the royal court. Well, almost. How often does the Holy Order receive reports of bad things happening around Kalincha or the prefectures close to the Great Wall from its paladins stationed there?" Nothing recently, but, early on, there were several major industrial accidents. After that, measures were taken to reduce the risk of fires and such, and there haven't been any reported since. As we discussed before, however, the Holy Order doesn't have a lot of paladins to go around right now. There are only 5 stationed in Kalincha and they have to patrol the entire region. The early industrial accidents were probably purposeful acts to bring everyone into line. If there hadn't been any reported since then, it meant that the nobles had solidified their hold on the area. "If you're allowed to tell me, what is the disposition of the Holy Order's members?" "In terms of paladins," Remedios said, 10 in Hoban's prefecture, 5 in Lloyd's, 5 in Kalincha and Prat, 5 in Remune. The other half of the Holy Order is stationed in the southern Holy Kingdom. They may as well not exist at all." Trying to catch the nobles doing something illicit out in the countryside was an impossible prospect. No criminal in their right mind would stick around long enough for Remedios to run over and stomp them flat. The whole of the northern Holy Kingdom was effectively subject to the whims of the south. "Anyway," Liam said, "what I was trying to say is that the nobles have sent their best, most disciplined houses to set up shop in and around Hobans. Everyone here is supposed to behave themselves. The royal court sees that with their own eyes, receives reports from the rest of the country that matches what they see, and assumes that what they see is what's going on in the rest of the country. Kalincha, Prat, Lloyd's and Remune are probably set up like that, as well." "Then I should inform the Holy Order about that." "You could," Liam said, "but I don't think it'll get us anywhere. If you had the Royal Army providing coverage to prove that the reports aren't accurate, it might have been a different story. Right now, it's best to concentrate our limited numbers on the cities, and Hobans is the best bet for that." Remedios turned to face him, resting a hand on her crossed legs. "So as soon as they start plotting crimes," she made a slicing motion with her other hand, "we'll come in and stop them." "No." "No?" Remedios frowned. Think of it like a fight, Liam said. If we're too consistent and repetitive in our attacks, then we're going to get in trouble. We're on defense, as well, so we have to be shrewd in our offense. When we hit them, it has to hurt or it'll be too little. That makes sense, Remedios replied, but I won't allow harm to befall the citizens if I can help it. I'm pretty sure things won't escalate that quickly, Liam told her. Not intentionally, at least. I'll definitely let you know if I notice something like that is about to happen, though. For now, the goal is to maintain the peace of Hobans. I can get behind that. What am I supposed to do? It won't just be you, Liam said. All of the paladins stationed in Hobans will have to participate, too. It'd be awfully strange if you kept appearing to mess things up for the nobles when it isn't even your shift. We can start with deterrence. The Holy Order office will investigate information that they receive from concerned citizens or reinforce security in threatened areas. That should be enough to keep the nobles' agents from doing anything too risky and frustrate their ambitions. The city's population was already well past the point of resentment when it came to the nobles' games, so the explanation was vague enough that the nobles would never be able to figure out how they were being thwarted. Remedios crossed her arms, looking up at the canopy of her bed. This is getting complicated. You should speak to Captain Montagna about this. He should be back any day now. Once we produce results, Liam said. I don't want to needlessly waste the Holy Order's resources. Anyway, I need to get back before they notice I'm gone. Do you want your stuff? Remedios asked. My stuff? Liam frowned as he rose from his seat. Oh, not yet. I just got into one of their elite retinues, so suddenly showing up with a full set of fancy equipment would be super suspicious. All right. Liam went to the nearest window and peeked out of the curtains before stepping onto the windowsill. Liam. Yeah? He turned to see Remedios grinning happily at him from her bed. You're a good guy. Thanks for not letting me down. Liam nodded silently and grabbed the eaves overhanging the window, flipping himself up onto the rooftop. He couldn't find anyone snooping around, though the type of spying that the locals did probably wasn't worth it so late at night. After returning to the western blocks, he located the patrol that he had contacted before he left. This time, he waited on the street well ahead of them instead of popping up nearby. Oh, hey, it's Liam, right? Thought we missed you. Something caught my attention, Liam said, but it turned out to be nothing. What did Sir Jimena say? He says to hold off for now. Really? Why? You've overloaded the gatehouse. It never had much holding space in the first place and they filled the customs office, too. The last few guys you turned in are just dangling their heels over the edge of the wall. Oh, Sir Jimena wants a word with you at the end of the shift. He hoped he wouldn't get yelled at. As dawn rose over the capital, he warded away a dozen more people, including 2 who crawled out of their windows to have breakfast on the rooftops. Once he spotted A Company's men coming to replace the night shift, he made his way to the western gatehouse. Sir Jimena was speaking to the same knight from the previous evening in the captain's office. They both looked over in his direction when he rapped his knuckles on the wooden column at the top of the stairs. Liam, Sir Jimena nodded. Come in. This is Sir Pires, captain of A Company. So you're the new thief catcher, the tall redhead said. How about working on the day shift? Any man working on the rooftops during the day is just asking to get cooked, sir. Sir Pires chuckled at his response. Yet they say A Company is the choice assignment, he said. It's no better baking on the street, I tell you. What's your assessment of our jurisdiction so far? Sir Jimena asked. There are too many people playing around up there right now, sir, Liam asked. That's a type of protection on its own. Once we thin them out, we'll get a real idea of how many are being sent over on purpose. The knight picked up a small pouch from the captain's desk and lobbed it at Liam. It landed in his palm with an audible clink. What's this for, sir? Liam asked. Good work is rewarded, Sir Jimena answered. That's how it should be, right? Thank you, sir. Return to the camp and get some rest. You'll be clearing another part of our jurisdiction tonight. Liam saluted and descended the stairs. Despite only covering a handful of city blocks, his new job was far more demanding than escort duties between Hobans and Cantor. He yawned and stretched as he walked down the western highway, wondering what was for dinner. Liam, you're just in time. Liam froze at the edge of the camp offices, where Sir Jorge was waving him over with a huge smile. Just in time? A fresh batch of girls has come in. The guy just wouldn't give up. What does he mean by fresh batch, anyway? Do they pick girls off of trees here? Are there different seasons for different types? I just moved, Liam said. It's been a busy night, too. Maybe later. No, Liam, you do not understand. Sir Jorge came up and fell into step beside him. You are in B Company now. The elite companies get to pick the best girls first, and it is first come, first serve. Those left unchosen will surely be snapped up when they are passed down to the lower camps. There is no maybe later. That's not the point. He was still sore from being in bed with Remedios. Any involvement with girls was even further from his mind than usual. Come, Jorge rested a hand on his shoulder, we're going by them right now. It is not good for a man of your status to be alone, Liam sighed and allowed himself to be led aside. The aforementioned best girls were lined up on a wooden platform placed in a patch of morning light. He had to admit they were all well above average in terms of looks. Whoever made the arrangements even made sure that there were a variety of different types available. All of them were young, with none appearing past their teens. A crowd of men had formed around them, but none were allowed on the platform. Liam glanced at their longing looks as Sir Jorge led him up to see the girls. It seemed that they were on display as yet another incentive for performance. As far as ideas went to improve camp operations, it probably wasn't a bad idea considering how hard it was to motivate anyone to do more than the bare minimum. He knew that more than a few people didn't care too much about wealth but went crazy over women. Please, Jorge nudged him forward. Do not hold back on our account. No, it's more that I'm holding back on my account. Jorge was all smiles, entirely oblivious to Liam's thoughts. Now that it had become a matter of status, he wasn't sure how he could worm his way out. Nobles and their retainers were very particular about certain things and life would get increasingly difficult the more he went against their customs. Being seen as a deviant would probably create all sorts of trouble for him. Ugh, I can't even look them in the eye. Never mind the envious gazes of the men below, the women were sizing him up as well. It was like he was a piece of meat being assessed by the women who were in turn being assessed like pieces of meat by the crowd. How could he even decide? The best girls were selected for their looks alone. Additionally, it looked like the camp had taken them in, or maybe picked them out, to be fed and groomed until they were presentable as prime products for the privileged. Yet, despite that, he could still sense their desperation. No, it's worse than that. They're all scared. Whether it was fear of selection or rejection and what might come after that, he couldn't tell. As a follower of the Six, he had no intention of marrying someone until he was 20. The priest said that starting to consider prospective partners was fine when one got to around 17 or 18, but 12 was far too young to even start thinking about it. Never mind me, they're all young, too, Gem, how about this? I'm looking for someone who can read and do math, Liam said. Please step forward if you can do both. Only one of the girls stepped forward. Well, that certainly narrows things down. She appeared to be around Liam's age and was a bit taller than him. She was also the prettiest out of the group, though that was probably just his opinion. Liam walked up to the girl, who looked uncertain as to what was going on. I'm Liam, he said. What's your name? Natalia. The girl's gaze went to the floor of the platform. Natalia Abarca. Pleased to meet you, Miss Abarca. Liam smiled and held out his hand. Let's go. Let's go? What's going on? As they walked along, Natalia Abarca stole glances at the man holding her hand. She couldn't figure out what had happened. For the past 2 weeks, she was kept in a tent separate from the rest of the labor camp. There, she and several other women were prepared for their future as wives. Some had come of their own accord, confident that they could secure a new life with their looks. Others had given up on trying to survive in the city and the labor camps were the only alternative available. Natalia, however, had a different story, though it was one that was becoming increasingly common. Her family, crushed by debt as it tried to hold on to its workshop in the city, had sold her to pay it off. In other words, she was a slave. Her father was a shrewd artisan, so Natalia wasn't sold cheaply. The man from House Rastello, which financed her family's debt, also assured her that she would be going to a good place. Natalia's opinion didn't exactly matter, but she was glad that she could be of some use to her family and might be valued elsewhere. The labor camp was just outside of the city, too, so she thought it would be nice if she could visit her old home once in a while. It wasn't as if she was treated like a slave in some of the stories, either. The women at the tent did everything they could to make sure she looked as good as possible, which meant that she no longer went to bed hungry and didn't want for any other necessities. They had even made a fancy shift for her, though she was embarrassed to wear something that was cut above the knee. When it came her time to line up on the platform, they fussed over her for hours before putting her on display. Her hair was combed to a silky sheen and they even used the super famous Kalincha soap that was made out of olives to make sure her skin was perfect. They didn't put on any makeup because being young was supposed to be her selling point. She was made to repeat what she had learned on how to behave and what was expected of her as the woman of a man of status. There was so much that it made her nervous about whether she could keep up with everything. Then, not an hour after she took her place on the platform, Liam showed up, asked who could read and do math, and then let's go. She could still feel the utter confusion of the other women as she left the platform with Liam, and she was still thoroughly confused herself. "Have you had breakfast yet?" Liam asked. "No." Was that the appropriate response? Men didn't like women who were too demanding. "Say something." Liam didn't say anything at all. Was he unhappy with her answer? For a few moments, she feared that he would return her to the platform, but all they did was walk straight through the middle of the labor camp to the other side. They crossed an empty yard to join a line of men at a nearby pavilion. The man at the back of the line turned to greet them. "Hey, Liam, good work out there." "Hey, Marim. What's for dinner?" "Buttered bread, beef stew, collard greens and broiled bay haddock. And fruit, of course. We keep clamoring to have the chef's add crab and lobster, but they insist that those are an evening course." Natalia swallowed. The food that Liam and these men ate was far better than even the preparation tent. Most people in the city had to live on dried fish and seasonal fruit. "That your girl?" "This is Natalia Abaka," Liam replied. "She'll be staying with me starting today." "Oh, I see," Marim said. "Better hold on tight to Liam, Natalia. This guy's going places." "I'm not doing anything that's special," Liam furrowed his brow. "Well, I can't be the judge of what you're doing, but it's more a matter of scarcity anyway. You're the only specialist in your field right now. And it's not as if you didn't bring in a huge haul on your first day." "They were just small fish," Liam looked to the side. "Why don't the companies bring in more, anyway? I know for a fact that they have people with at least some skills. What we're doing is more a matter of coverage than anything else." Several of the men nearby looked in on the conversation. Marim crossed his arms, stepping back as the line shifted forward. "You're new, so I can see how you could think that. But being in the top companies isn't just a matter of skill, it's a matter of trust. Did you hear what happened to the guy that came before you? Executed, or something? We're in a position of power and authority and with a face of House Rastello in the capital. Maybe getting here was all smooth sailing for you, but we don't let just any random guy in. Even with all of the effort put into testing people for the job, some guys still start acting as if they're the king of the world and lose their heads. Literally. And they smear mud all over our reputation in the process," one of the men nearby muttered darkly. "Damage like that takes forever to repair." "Yeah," Marim nodded. "Imagine if the thief-takers we take on were actually rogues. We'd get kicked out of Hoban so fast that we wouldn't know what happened. Remedios Custodia herself might even show up to thrash us." Liam stared up at the other men in silence. Natalia couldn't blame him. Rogues were terrible, evil creatures. When their turn at the counter came, Natalia took a roll of bread and butter, some collard greens, and a small bowl of beef stew. Liam's portion was humongous. "Ah, this is dinner for B Company," he said when he caught her staring at his plate. "Oh." She and Liam joined Marim and another man at one of the tables set up nearby. The men all dug into their meals greedily while Natalia picked at her food. "How come you didn't bring your wives?" Liam asked. "Mine worked in the water gardens before she came here," Marim said. "She's used to late nights, so she's always asleep when we get back from work." "The missus is doing baby things," the other man said. "I'm no good at that stuff. I bring her breakfast home once I'm done with dinner." "Home, huh?" Liam wiped up his beef stew with a roll of bread, I just have the one tent I traded up into after the promotion yesterday. Where does everyone get their stuff? There's a market in the third tier of the lower camps. Marim waved his spoon in a loose direction. Right between the two main lanes to the offices. Yeah, Liam nodded. I've been on caravan escort this entire time, so I haven't gotten the chance to take a look yet. A perk of working in Hobans. You're not going all over the damn place anymore and you get some time for yourself. Oh, since you're going shopping, do everyone in the company a favor and buy the latrine seat with the water plug. Natalia continued to nibble at her breakfast as the men chatted away. Was this what being a wife was like? She didn't know men could talk so much. Her father barely said anything outside of work. 30 minutes later, they were walking back through the camp's office area. The place was as busy as a merchant guild branch in the city. She grabbed Liam's hand again when a pair of men nearby raised their voices. So, Liam glanced at her. What do you do, Miss Barker? You can just call me Nat. Everyone calls me that. He sounded so distant when he said Miss Barker that she was afraid he would just drift away like a piece of flotsam. Sure, if that's what you want, Nat. About my question. What did you mean? How old are you? Liam asked. 13. Then you should almost be a journeyman if you aren't one already. You lived in the city, right? I helped my father in the shop. What sort of shop was it? He did smithing and leatherwork. Smithing and leatherwork? Natalia frowned at Liam's frown. Was there something strange about that? Most artisans dabbled in multiple crafts so they could make all of the different bits and pieces of their goods themselves. It was inconvenient and expensive to buy things from other shops. Which one are you better at? Liam asked. My father didn't let me do any metalwork, she answered. But he praised my leatherworking skills and let me do as much as I wanted. Blacksmithing was a man's job and her father only let her do leatherwork because it was sort of like tailoring. I see. So you're a journeyman leatherworker? No, Natalia shook her head. I'm not even an apprentice. Living in the city is expensive, so I just wanted to help my family out. Just for clarification, Liam said. When did you start helping your family out? After the war. At 14, I would have gone to the army, but they don't do that anymore. She thanked the gods for that much, at least. Being a soldier would have probably been the end of her. But, even if they still did, Liam said, you'd need a vocation after you got back from the army, right? No? After the army, I'd get married and raise a family. My husband would have earned enough for all of us. Where was he going with this? She couldn't figure out what he was thinking at all. First the reading and the math and now all the talk about work. The sound of artisans plying their trade grew louder as they approached a camp section filled with colorful tents and stalls. Natalia gaped as they slipped through the bustling marketplace, not quite believing what she saw. Whenever she thought about the labor camps, a sea of tents where destitute farmers struggled to survive by clinging to the cities was the first thing that came to mind. She had seen them from one of the gates, once, and the people that she saw all looked really poor. They walked into a pavilion where a variety of clothing was on display. Liam let go of her hand. Pick some clothing that you like, he said. I'm not very good at fashion stuff. Eh? But there's no need for you to buy anything for me. Did you leave your belongings somewhere in the camp? Natalia shook her head. Then I need to buy you some stuff. Everyone was staring at you while we walked here. A blush crept up her neck as what he was saying sunk in. She had been so focused on Liam that she forgot that she was walking around in a pair of straw sandals with a really short shift. I'm sorry, she lowered her head. I've shamed you. More like you embarrassed yourself, Liam said. Anyway, find some clothes. One of the shopkeepers swooped down on her the moment Liam left the pavilion. By the time he came back, Natalia had somehow been convinced to buy 3 sets of fancy clothing that came complete with everything else. They even had real shoes for sale. Her head swam as she calculated the cost of it all. He was going to think she was a brazenly greedy woman and she would end up back on display. No one would want her after that. We don't need 3 fancy sets, Liam said. Can you put together 4 sets of work clothes and 4 sets of sleep clothes? I need some sleep clothes, as well. Of course, sir, the shopkeeper nodded. What about the, fancy sets? Just one for now. For her. It's not as if we'll be attending a festival every day. Also, do you have any boots? Those shoes won't be any good for walking around if she wants to go to the market or the city. Oh, a good, waterproof mantle for when it rains, too. It was a lot more sensible than what the shopkeeper had pushed on her, but it was still a ridiculous amount to buy all at once. She leaned in close to whisper into Liam's ear. Is this really all right? What are you talking about? Liam replied, I chose you, so I have to take care of you, right? At least for now. What's that supposed to mean? The first part made her feel really happy, but the last part filled her with dread. She wanted him to explain, but he just turned to the shopkeeper and pulled out a coin purse. How much is everything? He asked. A work set is 6 and a night set is 2. The mantle is 6 and the boots are 12. It's 40 for the formal wear, which includes customization by the tailor. Is that silver? Gold? Was Liam a noble? The idea that he could be carrying so much money was insane. As she boggled over the numbers, Liam started counting out some unfamiliar metal objects from the purse. Wait, what are those? Natalia asked. It's camp's grip, Liam answered. Oh, I guess you just came from the city so you don't know. One of these metal chits can be redeemed for a full meal at most of the camp kitchens. So the boots are worth 4 days' worth of food. One must also consider material and capital costs, the shopkeeper said. Right. She knew that. It takes around half a day for a master cobbler to make a pair of normal boots, so, wait a minute. Why is stuff so cheap here? Natalia exclaimed. Stuff's actually around the same price as it was just after the war, Liam said. That's still more expensive than usual. But the city is way more expensive. That would be a city problem. Did that make any sense? Living in the city was almost always more expensive than living in the country, but the stupid camp was right beside the stupid city. People in the city were supposed to make more money, too. After being fitted for her new dress by the tailor, she put on a set of work clothes and they left the pavilion to wander around the market some more. Liam's next stop was a blocked-off area where a bunch of blacksmiths were making bits and pieces of everyday essentials. What do you need from here? He asked. What do you mean? Leather workers need tools, right? Huh? Things were making less and less sense. Unless. Are you saying you want me to work as a leather worker? Natalia asked. You don't want to? I thought you said you were good at it. But I'm supposed to be your wife. What does that have to do with this? I can't be both. Raising kids is more than enough work on its own. What am I doing? It had barely been an hour since he had met him, yet they were already fighting. At this rate, he was going to throw her away. Then don't have kids, Liam told her. Natalia's heart froze. Ugh, I knew it. I'm a horrible wife. I'm going to die single and childless after causing endless problems. She grew up hearing cautionary tales about women like that, but she never imagined that she would become one of them. You're only 13, Liam said. You don't have to have kids as soon as you can. We're not being raided by demi-humans anymore, right? What does that have to do with anything? It means you can do lots of stuff before settling down because you don't have to worry about being randomly eaten. Besides, I've seen plenty of working women. Like the ladies at the Merchant Guild. That's because no one wants to marry them, Natalia told him. A part of her felt sorry for the receptionists at the guild, but it was still their own fault that they were single. Then what about farming households? Liam asked. Everyone works on a farm. Farmers are different. Why was he so insistent? Only weirdos like wizards and adventurers wanted to live unmarried lives and didn't have kids. Why not just try it out? Liam asked her. Could it be that you hate it? No. Then you should give it a fair chance. It'll be helpful for me, too. It will? Yeah. I'm a thief taker, so a lot of my equipment uses leather. Natalia's mouth fell open. Liam was a hero who fought rogues. Why didn't he say so in the first place? No, she was just stupid. The other men at breakfast treated him like someone special and she had just ignored it. I'll do it. She clenched her fists in front of herself. I'll fix your armor every time you get stabbed. Please don't make getting stabbed a requirement. It all made sense now. Just like mending underwear and socks, she would be doing proper wife things. She thanked the gods that they had prepared her in advance to help her husband. Once she settled on a good set of tools from the blacksmith, they went over to buy a stack of Lanka leather and sewing supplies. "So," Liam asked as the shopkeeper put their purchase together, "what did you make when you were helping out your family?" "Mostly straps and belts," Natalia replied. "Padding for armor, too. I made an armor harness once." "Why?" "I was just trying to figure out how you could practice efficiently. It'd be easier to do more if you could sell the stuff that you make." "Sell? But I thought you wanted me to repair your equipment." "I do, but improving your skills is good. The better you get at leatherworking, the better you get at fixing stuff, right? Oh, since you mentioned it, you could practice by repairing things around the camp, too." That was probably a good idea. She didn't want to screw up fixing his equipment and get returned to the platform. Their next stop was a yard filled with furniture. She fidgeted a bit while Liam examined a big bed. A skinny man came over from the far side of the yard, obsequiously dry washing his hands. "May I help you with something, sir?" "We just moved to a bigger plot," Liam said. I guess we need everything." "We?" He said we. It seemed that he wasn't thinking of returning her. Important men could have any woman they wanted, so she had to hold on tight to him as Mariam said. The shopkeeper took them around the yard, calling in laborers to carry away the things that they bought. After she thought they were done buying furniture, Liam pointed to a solid wooden table. "How about that one for your workshop?" he asked. "My workshop?" "Yeah. You didn't think you were going to have to work at the dining table, did you? There isn't enough space on it for your tools and supplies." She often worked at her family's dining table before since their workshop was small. As far as she knew, it wasn't abnormal. Then again, people always said that important men did everything big. The ladies at the tent said that appearances are important. But is this all right? He's already bought so much. Liam never showed a single shred of hesitation throwing so much money around. He was a real big shot. After buying the table, 3 big chests, 2 shelves, and a tall cabinet, they went to the place next to the furniture market to buy 2 tents and some tarps. A giant pile of things greeted them when they finally returned to Liam's plot on the other side of the camp. Several women watched them curiously from the neighboring plots. "This is a lot of stuff," Liam said. Natalia nodded. The people at the market had their things delivered as they bought them, so she didn't expect to find a small mountain waiting for them. "What do we do now?" she asked. Liam looked around at the neighbors' tents. "The big tent will be the house, then this smaller tent will be the warehouse. The pavilion will be your workshop. The tiny tent is for the latrine. We'll stretch the big tarp over the yard between everything and make a floor with the other tarps. That way, we can have a kind of outdoor living room with lots of space if we need it. Will that cause any problems for you?" "I'm fine if you're fine with it." It was his plot and he had paid for everything besides, so she wasn't sure why he bothered asking her. After setting everything up and putting all of the little things in their places, they were left with the big workshop table. It was so heavy that it had taken 2 grown men to move from the market and they moved it really slow. "How are we going to move this?" she asked. "Should we ask around for help?" "I'll do it. All of the guys should be asleep by now, so we shouldn't go around disturbing the neighbors." She gaped wordlessly as he picked up the heavy table. He wobbled around as he walked since he had to hold it up from the center, but he didn't seem tired at all when he crawled out from under it. "Is that good?" Liam asked. The table made a sort of counter on the side of the pavilion facing the lane, while the 2 shelves and the cabinet formed a wall on the far side. Her 3 chests were lined up in the back and, even with all that, there was plenty of room to spare. "There was more room than I expected," Liam said. "Have you thought of anything else that you might need?" "Not really. Just let me know if you do. I'll do what I can to make sure you're always at your best." Once again, Liam's odd enthusiasm stirred up her confusion over what was going on. She had been sold to pay off her family's debts and underwent preparations to become a wife. Yet, she hadn't been chosen for anything that they had prepared her for. It took a moment for her to come out of her daze and realize that Liam had entered his tent. She rushed in after him and closed the flap. "All right, now we get down to the serious business." Or so she told herself, but new worries came with that. Grown-up things were supposed to happen at night. It was still the middle of the day and it was so bright that Liam would be able to see everything. What if he didn't like what he saw? She didn't have the curvy figure that attracted the gazes of men. Could she put a sack over his head? No, you already have a fish in your net, Natalia Abarca. Focus on pulling in your haul. Once she gave him a son, he would fall in love with her and her position as his wife would be all but secure. She came forward to help Liam out of his uniform. He jumped when her fingers brushed his arm. What are you doing? Helping you out of your uniform, my dear. It's all right, he told her, I can do it myself. You can go ahead and start working on your leatherworking. Oh, I think a few things were pulled loose on my belt when I was climbing around. Could you check on that, as well? But I need to get some sleep now. My shift starts in the evening and it's already past noon. With that, Liam crawled into bed, turning his back to the entrance of the tent. But what about our babies? Natalia stared at Liam's back for a full minute, but nothing else happened. With a sigh, she bundled his clothing into her arms. She found 3 of her female neighbors looking curiously into Liam's plot as she stepped out of the tent. One of the women offered her a sympathetic smile. Don't let it get to you, she told her. Guys around his age are always in a rush to get the deed done.